Hi friends. This is like my fourth time trying to record this video, so I hope it goes all the way through. Um, as I was thinking about the sort of coexistence of both oppressed and privileged identities, um, a couple things kind of came up for me. I think it's really important for us to consider sort of those big pieces of identity that we talked about earlier in the semester. So, like gender, race, sexual orientation, gender expression, even. Things like educational background, ability or disability. Um, I think some of those sort of big pieces that form our identity, and within the same person, you can have identities that are marginalized and might lead to oppression, and identities that will give you more privilege. So I was thinking about the example in the clip that we listened to of Alex, um, who is a black man, and so being black, there is definitely, especially it sounds like he might be from the South, and a bit of racism going on that he might be experiencing, and stigma and oppression around that. But as a man, will also have a little bit of privilege in a way that other people won't. I need to pause this because there's a truck going past me. I apologize for the pause. But just kind of noting that Alex has sort of some of those oppressed identities as a black man, as a gay man, but then as being a man, maybe a little bit more privileged than some women around him might have, especially a woman with a black racial identity as well as like identifying as gay or queer in some way. And so just sort of looking at how all those identities intersect to give us privilege and oppression. And I would also note that I feel like some of those identities are more sort of face forward. So gender identity and racial identity are very like in your face. They are things that are kind of hard for people to miss, and therefore maybe come with some charged stigma and oppression. Without people even knowing you. Whereas like socioeconomic background, educational background, sexual orientation might be things that come up as people get to know you a little bit more, and might not necessarily lead to that daily oppression. Um, and therefore like might not counteract your privileged identities quite as much. So those are some things that I was sort of thinking about, and so I absolutely do think that they can coexist with one another. I would also add maybe just this element of like feeling as though um, some of the other examples are all very similar to this story of Alex, where maybe you have like a racial identity that might lead you to oppression, or a sexual orientation that might lead you to oppression, but a gender identity and an educational background that might give you a little bit more privilege. And the other examples I was able to think of were all like fairly similar to that. So maybe looking at young black men in general, and who are absolutely victims of police brutality, and that's pretty proven across our country right now. But as a young black man versus a young black woman, they might have a little bit of power that comes with that male privilege, and and then looking at maybe a young black woman and a young black man versus someone who is black and transgender, and sort of that as a very stigmatized and oppressed group of people. So I think in all of this, it was very important for me to look at intersectionality. So the way that our different identities intersect with one another to create that like spot of both having privilege and having an oppressed identity as well. So I think that's why intersectionality is really important, and an important topic for us to consider as we're having this conversation. So people with multiple oppressed identities, I think that counteracts any privileged identities that they might have. And honestly, in the example of Alex, it was hard for me to feel like he actually had a lot of privilege. I think he comes from a privileged culture, but I mean, he had a very stigmatized family environment and religious environment, people who did not agree with his choices or with his, like, who he is as a human. And that was really hard for me to see much privilege in that. So those are kind of my thoughts for right now. Thanks for your time. Bye.